Good morning, everybody. I want to welcome you here to Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. So we're here to do episode 4 of this mini-series I've been running for the last 3 days. This will be the 4th day, called Alternate Universe Returns. So some of you have been following it. You know what I'm doing. For those who are new and don't know what I'm doing here, we're basically talking about, I've put together 5 episodes of an alternate universe. Now, I was a big fan of the comic What If, Marvel comic What If, which featured the Watcher doing these, what if this person had joined this band, a group, or if this person had joined that supergroup, or if this person hadn't died, or whatever. And I always loved that, so I decided I wanted to do something to commemorate that. So I decided to do this alternate universe. Now, the original alternate universe episodes I had taken 5 bands and took all the vocalists and shuffled them and put them in the other bands, and we did it that way. This one's a little bit different. So I've taken little stories that I've seen on the internet, or little history things, or things that I heard in my real world that I thought were kind of funny at the time, but I've decided to give them a life here. So the first 3, if you've been following, the first one was Tony Iommi joining Jethro Tull. The second one was Elton John joining King Crimson. And the third one, which was yesterday's, Stephen Stills joining the Monkees. Today it's one that was never really something on the internet. It really wasn't something that actually took place, but it was speculated upon largely when I was in early high school, and that was that Peter Criss was going to join Led Zeppelin. Yeah, I know. I don't believe it either. Anyways, so it seemed like an impossibility even then. Now it seems like a real impossibility, but we're going to do an episode on it anyways. What if Peter Criss replaced John Bonham in Led Zeppelin and they continued? How would that fly? Well, many people are going to say it would never fly. It has no chance of success. However, I have had arguments with some people on here who are of the opinion that if all the drumming instrumentation is put down on paper, any drummer can play it. You know, the guy said Neil Peart put all his drumming on there. Anybody can play it. Just look on the internet. You'll see 6-year-olds playing Neil Peart stuff. Do you believe that stuff? I don't. I think that's definitely something that's been all doctored. There's no way a 6-year-old's playing Neil Peart stuff. It's not happening. I think there's a lot of drummers out there would have a hard time learning to play that, even if it was written on paper. And I still think that's probably the case here too. Peter Criss was a decent drummer. He was. I loved his stuff. I think for the kind of band that Kiss was, he was a absolutely decent drummer for them. Could he play the complex stuff that John Bonham played? I have my mixed views about that. I think he could learn to do it, but it would take a longer time than you would expect for it to happen. So, but anyways, in this alternate universe, Peter Criss joins Led Zeppelin. And we get Led Zeppelin continuing on into the 80s. Now, the reason I think this might work, and this, kick me in the head if you think I'm reaching, but I sensed that Zeppelin was planning to change their music. They were not that, they had already begun a little bit with In Through the Outdoor. You could see the change in their music, and I think it would have continued if John Bonham hadn't have died. But since he did die, and they decided not to dishonor his memory and went their own separate ways, I think if they had taken on another drummer and it had been Peter Criss, their music would have been very different. You might even have had some twin vocaling going on here that isn't possible with the current Led Zeppelin. So Peter Criss joins, and they put out another album instead of Coda a few years later. This album's a lot more poppy. It's got a lot more of that 80s sound to it. A lot more moving towards what Robert Plant wanted to do with his own solo career. But now he's got Peter Criss here in the band. The music is more simplified. It's not as complex. It's more electronic. They were moving that way anyways. And it's not nearly as heavy as it once was. And you've got Peter Criss actually joining Robert Plant on vocals on a couple of tracks. How would that sound? Now, Peter Criss has a fantastic vocal voice, one of the best, I think. And if they were going to do some bluesy stuff together, that would probably be pretty fantastic, I think. So Peter Criss joins, they do some of that kind of stuff. This goes on for a few years. They put out a couple more albums, and they're doing really well because that poppy sound is in, and Led Zeppelin is in, and they're still around. But you're getting the die-hard Led Zeppelin fans are screaming to get this guy out of the group. He doesn't belong there. He's defaming their memories. Peter Criss, being the sensitive type of guy he is getting sick of this kind of conversation. And plus, he's singing. He's singing in the band. He's singing in Led Zeppelin. And people are saying, this guy is better than we think he is. And he's got a big ego, so he's thinking, what, I could do this on my own. So after about 3 albums with Led Zeppelin having Peter Criss on it, they decide that they're going to part company. Peter Criss is going to go solo, which is what he was going to do after the Kiss album in 1980. But he put it off to play with Led Zeppelin, and who in their right mind wouldn't, right? And Robert Plant at this point realizes that, I'm pretty good as a pop artist. I can do this stuff on my own. I don't need all the aggravation of listening to people go on about how this isn't Zeppelin and all this and stuff like that. I'm going to go on my own too. And so the band dissolves. So all they did was put off the inevitable for a few more years. Led Zeppelin is not Led Zeppelin without John Bonham. And that's my opinion. But for this fantasy world, they were for 3 more albums with Peter Criss. So I hope you've enjoyed this kind of alternate universe narrative. How do you think would this have played out? Is there any chance that they would have taken Peter Criss? Or do you think this is just a complete fantasy land? Anyways, please hit the like and subscribe. That's much appreciated. And put your comments about the current episode down in the comment section. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss any more. We have 1 more episode to go. That will come out tomorrow, the final episode. And I hope you've enjoyed it as much as it's been kind of tongue-in-cheek fun to do at this point. Take care and goodbye.